Alright guys, we're changing a belt on a Honda Civic 1.6 liter. This is a 2000, works for a lot of them. Alright, we got our power steering belt, our AC belt, and then the back belt is your alternator belt right there. Alright, so we're going to start off with the power steering belt, getting that off. You're going to want to loosen this bolt right here, 12 millimeter, and loosen that bolt down there, 12 millimeter. They can be hard to crack free. Use the double wrench method because you can't really get a ratchet in there too easily. You're going to put a wrench on it like that, and then you put your second wrench on it. See if I can do this with one hand. I can't do it. Not with one hand, guys. But anyways, you hook another wrench around it. Or you might be able to get in that one with a ratchet. But this one, alright, so that belt is loose now. The alternator, see if we can focus the camera here. There's your top bolt. That's the one that's going to slide. It stays in there. You just need to loosen it. Come on, focus camera. That bolt right there. Just get her loose. There's another one on the bottom, and I'll show you that one to get loose. Let's lift her up. This will be our pivot bolt on the alternator. We come up underneath here, and there's a bolt right here on the alternator. It goes all the way through this bracket and the ears of the alternator. Come around angle on this side right there. Get this guy loose. He's loose. Make sure the whole thing spins. You can spray it with some PB Blaster. That's loose. All right, those bolts are loose. Now the AC, if you got to take that one off, the AC belt is the middle one on the crank here, and that one has a tensioner pulley. You can't see it from the bottom. We'll show you. All right, back to the top of the engine. You see that tensioner pulley right there underneath the power steering? That's the tensioner for the AC belt to get that one off. I believe that's a 10 millimeter bolt on the top of it. It adjusts the pulley going up and down. Grab yourself a pry bar, because these, after sitting for so long, usually don't move really easily. But, all right, here we go. See, that's how you make it go tighter. You make it go looser. The power steering belt. So we're gonna try to take that belt off, but we can't. It's not loose enough. Looks like we're gonna take this bolt all the way out and then grab our power steering belt off. All right, here we are underneath the car, and that alternator did not want to budge. Sprayed it down with PB Blaster on the swivel points and the bolts. I took my pry bar up in here against the alternator, see if you can see it, and press backwards. Come on, focus camera. There we go. And press backwards, and it finally budged free. I kind of worked it back and forth, so it was real rusted up on the swivel points right there. But now it pressed backwards, and our belt is loose. I also got the power steering belt off, hanging right there. Take it off from the crank. It's easier than the power steering pulley. Now we can take our alternator belt off and loop our new alternator bolt on. On that power steering pump up top, I shouldn't have had to have loosened that top bolt. Maybe somebody put a belt on that was a little too small or something. But yeah, they're both off now. All right, we got our belts back on. Pretty easy to take the bolt out, or the belt out, and put it back in. It's kind of close to the body here, so you gotta like kind of fish that belt in there, but not too bad. Once I got it over the crank on the alternator belt and over the alternator, I took my pry bar in here and pressed the alternator backwards to tighten the belt up. It's still really stiff on the bolts. And then I fed my power steering belt back on the crank. Let's bring her down. All right, we're back on the top of the engine. If we look down there, there's our bolt that swivels right there. Well, it slides on. There's a little rail that it slides in. I got my pry bar down there on the alternator, pressing up against the block or the head or the intake, something sturdy, and pressing over. And you can see our bolt is almost at the end of the line. And if I reach my hand down in there, I can press on the belt. And we should have about a 1/4 inch of play per foot. That's nice and tight where it's at. And because it's not sliding very easily at all because of the rust, it's kind of staying in place for us. That's a good thing. If yours is real loose, you might want to have somebody hold the bar in place while you tighten that upper bolt down. So I've got the belt tension where I want it with the pry bar. Tighten the upper and lower bolt now. We'll move on to the power steering. The one with the belt that's too small for it that's on there. I had to take that bolt all the way out to get enough slack to get around the crank, but with my hands it looks like I can get that bolt back in. So I'm going to get that bolt back in. And then same strategy. We want this belt nice and tight where it should be. And we're going to use the pry bar after I get this bolt almost all the way tightened. You want to leave it a little loose so it swivels. And then we're going to put the pry bar on the power steering and lock down both of the bolts. Alright, we got her all done. I was able to get that power steering belt a little tighter than they had it, which is better. It's not backed all the way back against this slot. So that's good. That bolt's tight. This bolt's tight. Bolt on the alternator's tight. Bolt on the lower the alternator's tight. Belt tension feels good. That's how it's done. See ya.